We have a guest, Susan White. She owns Atlas,
Nice.
and she's here to support. I think Matthew's traveling, but Sebastian's here. He's gonna go first. Welcome, Susan, my friend.
Thank you, Bill. I'm very honored and proud to be here. I'm proud of
Hopefully-
everybody there.
Yeah,
Thank
you're
you
the only
so
one
much.
that showed up out of all the people,
I'm
right?
so
That said
proud.
they were
I'm so
coming
thrilled.
for graduation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming though. All right, let's start with I'm going to just give you a quick tour through for Susan's benefit. Through what this course has been. We started with 16 people and we end up with 10, which is pretty good. Usually and you guys decided to join up in 12 weeks ago now. It's been every single week pretty much other than the holidays, and just kind of just take everybody through what you did. About 1,200 slides, 12 weeks, and then some homework every week. So, I mean, the first homework was the Pareto stuff, the SIPOC, and then we even had Eric on the call. He did how to cook a turkey with a process swim map. Then we got into statistics, a lot of descriptive statistics. This was all the homework, usually using my weight and pulse data for the last, I don't know, 20 years. And then we got into some inferential statistics, some normality, hypothesis testing, and everybody. There's Frank. And a little bit more, lot of hypothesis tests. So basically it was, 1,200 slides, like an hour a pop, and then stomaching your way through the homework, and everybody, to go back all the way to the beginning, this class was 100%, all the homework done. The homework scores are all 100, and all the exams have been passed. So all that's left is, drum roll, this presentation today in front of, hey, Frank, I want to welcome you too as a guest, you and Susan, to support your people.
Absolutely. How you doing, Bill?
Good. How are you, brother?
I'm good.
And I think so. All we got left is just the project presentation, and then you get a certificate that's suitable for framing, and then you get a coffee mug with a green belt on it. So I think we said we're going to start with Sebastian. You good to go? Like, I have your presentation.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yeah, let me see. Yes. So just a little bit, I'm sorry, just before we go. So the three teams were Dan Rakowski, was with Eric and Tiffany and Andrew. And Kim had Ryan Dennis and Coda. And Sebastian, you had Ty, Matthew, right?
Yes.
All right. Let me I'm gonna probably make you the host. I think I still have to do that, right? Sebastian.
He should just be able to share his screen.
I'm actually on my phone. Ty, if you have the thing, can you share it on your screen?
I got it right here.
Sure.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, we'll just tell you to flip.
Cool.
Tell
Thank
me
you
when
so
to
much.
advance.
All right. So obviously ours, we decided to take some of the Atlas Stampings 2023 scrap data analysis and kind of use some of those numbers to see what we could find out as far as rejects, percentage of rejects, what it actually looks like, and see if there's any trends. So if you want to go to the next page for me. Thank you. So they've been collecting data through their ERP system since the beginning of 2023, in which the data that we compiled was 2,172 pieces of data. So it was a nice small chunk. But what they did is the data is actually off of 10 categories. So there's bad marks, bent, burrs, chip marks, chopped, dimensional, misformed, scratches, set of pieces, and surface imperfections. Now, obviously, using the techniques that we've learned in our class through Bill, we've decided to do some analysis with the scrap data from January through December of 2023. and come up with some conclusions as far as what we're seeing. Next page. So the first thing we did was we actually made a Pareto chart using all of the data. Now, obviously, looking at all of the data, you can actually see that there's kind of a clear winner as far as which one had the most scrap, which was the chip marks. But we looked at it versus the 80-20 rule, and really the 80-20 rule doesn't apply because 80% of the total rejects does not come from 20% of the scrap. As seen on the chart, you would physically see that to be within that rule, the chip marks would have to be considerably less, and the cumulative is almost 40% for chip marks only. So out of the 27,000 plus rejects, 10,880 of them were for one reject code only, which was chip marks. Recommendations off of the chart would include root cause analysis for the high scrap reasons, troubleshooting process and to mitigate the root cause, review inspection techniques to identify rejects in earlier in the process. So the next part we kind of did was we changed it kind of into the bad markings, and we did a Z distribution. Now, obviously, you can see that this Z distribution is abnormal data, mainly due to a couple different factors. But since you can't have a negative amount of scrap, your trend line is going to look very much like what we're seeing here. Now, due to the mean being 12.33 and the median of 5, that would suggest that the chip marks instances will be of a smaller quantity. Then we made it for a control chart out of it. Now, in the control chart, you're going to notice a couple things. One, yes, there is an upper spec limit. Yes, there's a mean, and then the quantities are by the blue line. You will notice there is no lower control limit. So when we originally did it, we did it off of standard deviation, which would go, you're going to multiply the standard deviation by a number, and it's going to give you a plus minus on that. So where this is saying that it's probably about 80 or 90 pieces is the upper control limit, that would mean that a negative 90 pieces would be the lower control limit. Well, you can't have lower for scrap. So the way to do it is either set up the chart without the lower control limit on it, or you just make lower control limit 0. So we decided just to kind of leave it off because obviously your ultimate goal is 0 rejects. Using the Western Electric rules, we have some specific cases that could be addressed. For example, during 2023, there were 3 outliers. Values more than 3 times the standard deviation from the mean, which is the really high spikes. In addition, there were some up and down movement through May and July, indicating kind of cycling. There is also a period between August through October, the values appearing to be one side of the mean, although it would indicate a low period of marking scrap at that point. And that would actually take us through the next slide. So we would actually be on slide 7 now.
Am I good, Ty?
Next slide, please.
All right,
Sebastian,
so this is the Z distribution chart for chip marks specifically. So here we have a mean of 16.14 and a median of 6. Most of the chip mark instances of rejection are generally smaller quantities, although you can see here on the chart that there are a few spots that are going to reach into higher quantities, hundreds, 200s, and then a couple instances closer to between 500 and 600. So those are going to be instances that are going to lead to a higher variation. So the deviation here is going to be 39, which is high because of those instances where the scrap quantity was high. You can go to the next slide. So here's a chip mark control chart for the year 2023. You can see at the beginning of the year, that first half, there's several instances of high outliers here. Much like the first chart for the marking, there's no lower control limit here because you're gonna have less than 0 scrap. During 2023, there were 16 outliers of chip mark rejections that were breaching over the upper control limit, 13 of which occurred between January and June, and then 3 more that occurred from July to December. So using this particular data, we can investigate these outliers and troubleshoot the processes for these specific parts to prevent more large-scale instances of chip mark rejections. This chip mark control chart also features several instances of points alternating between up and down, indicating some cycling at various points throughout the year. Especially in that beginning part of the year, you can see instances where the chip mark rejection quantities will go up and down in between the mean and the upper control limit, but you can still see that there's a lot of variation there. It seems to go down much more in the second half of the year over the first half of the year. But even still, it's something to really keep an eye on. So root cause analysis for the chip mark causes will be the best way to bring this particular scrap code into statistical control. You can move on to the next slide and then the slide after that, which is going to be the scatter plot. So this is the scatter plot that I made for the quantity of scrap and then by the different months of the past year. So you can see that there's a general trend, a downward trend through 2023. It's, well, I did that wrong, but it's for the 2023 year. It starts off much higher each month. There were 4,000 up to 4,000 and then 2,500. And then closer to the end of the year, you're coming in between 1,000 to 2,000 pieces of scrap. And then towards the end of the year, you're under 1,000 pieces of scrap. So there's a general downward trend here, which is a good thing to see. But it's always better to keep an eye on the outliers and then make note of those in order to bring scrap rates down. So you can go to the next slide. Okay, so in looking at the scrap data from 2023, the biggest issue noted is the number of outliers in the different scrap codes, specifically here in marking and chip marks, but also in misforms and scratches. While the majority of scrap instances are small quantities, the outliers are what push the end of the year scrap higher. Catching large quantity instances earlier in the manufacturing process is the best way to prevent outliers. Implementing Poka-Yoke detection controls on specific parts and retraining operators and in-process inspectors and catching visual discrepancies will drive down the scrap in 2024. Okay, that's the last slide.
Nice job, you guys. Nice job. Nice job, Sebastian and Ty. You know, just a
That
little
was
bit of,
incredible. Guys,
It-
that was really incredible. And it was on the money. And I'm sorry, am I not allowed to say anything? Sorry, Bill, sorry.
oh, absolutely, Susan. So happy to have you. Absolutely. I mean, Susan, I was just going to say, listen, these people have not had a release to their biggest customer in over 10 years. The scrap rate overall is less than 0.5%. But I just love the way you guys made this data talk. Used a bunch of tools to do it. And it's kind of a break from doing my health data, isn't it? That's kind of nice. Susan.
It's been helpful, and it's good to really know ways that I can really help to bring the scrap trend down. We have like a 3% limit here at Atlas for scrap, and we've been pretty consistently between 1% and 0.5% for the past few months. So scrap has been good here so far this year, but it's always, you can always make improvements.
Yeah, I think the thing that I kind of learned from the data was Sebastian just sent the scrap data, and I almost said, "Hey, how many parts did you sell for the year?" So I could kind of figure out a percentage. But even looking at it from a PTA standpoint, we have a lot of jobs that are very similar, where you could have a job that it looks really, really bad, and it's actually just fine. But it is good to be able to see those visually. Even when I was doing the data with Sebastian, I'm doing some of the charts and I'm like, wow, that looks really bad. But it's eye-opening to give you those numbers, put them in the calculations, see what the graphs look like, and then start looking at what's the next step now that we've got the data and we can analyze it. Let's get to the next step of fixing and troubleshoot. So
Again, well done, guys. Well done. Susan, you want to comment on that?
I thought that the data analysis was insightful. I think you can skew data anyway sometimes, you know, when you're looking at data. I thought you had clear conclusions on the trending of the scrap. And I'm just impressed at the thoughtfulness of the presentation. I mean, Bill, I'm bowled over. And for years here at Atlas, we have not seen something so thorough from our team. I don't want to, you know, I don't want to toot your horn too much, Sebastian, but this is a really, really nice present. Bill, I mean, what if you can speak to it? You've been with us for 5 years now, right?
Yep. That's actually, I don't know, maybe that downward trend started when Sebastian came. I don't know.
Maybe, could be.
Could be.
Excellent work, guys.
Nice.
Excellent.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Nice job
Thank
again,
you.
you guys. So who wants to go next, Kim or Dan?
We can go next.
We'll go next.
You want to get it out of the way, Dan?
Sure.
Exactly.
All right, let me give you the co-host. So the
Sure.
finale is going to be Kim and her team. You got it? I think you have control, Dan?
Let me try to share here. Sorry, I've never shared via Zoom before.
Oh, you guys are all teams, right? Make co-host. There you
Yeah,
go.
we use Teams. Oh, there we go. Share screen. Screen to share. Okay, is that working?
Yep.
All right, so unfortunately we did Bill's health data. None of us had data we could use ourselves for this, but our group was myself, Drew, Eric, and Tiffany. Unfortunately, Tiffany couldn't make it. She had a another class at 4 o'clock, but yeah, so here we go. First slide, we started with the DMAIC overview. Define, can we identify any trends in Bill's health seasonality year to year? Is there any correlation between Bill's weight, blood pressure, and pulse data? How can we provide insight on how Bill can maintain or improve his health moving forward? Measure, take measurements on Bill's pulse, weight, and blood pressure year to year. Thankfully, we had him do that for us for the past 20 years. And then analyze, where we create charts using Bill's data so that we can analyze where there are trends and where there are not. Use correlation charts to see if there are connections between data and control charts, and try to understand if Bill's health is within control or out of control, as well as provide scatter charts to provide further support for trends or lack thereof. Next, we improve, make inferences based on the data that we are analyzing to determine how Bill can make improvements in his health. Use the trending data to determine where in the year that Bill's health will peak or plummet, and inform Bill of these trends, as well as encourage Bill to make efforts to be more diligent during typical trending seasons so that he can make the correct choices to improve his health. And lastly, to control, exercise, eat better, take steps to ensure that Bill stays on track during trending peak seasons. Next, we did a fishbone. Eric, I'll let you talk on this one.
Yeah, sure. We found a couple of branches here that could be contributing to Bill's health. We found stress, and we broke that down in different things like work and hobbies and coaching. Something that I see is missing is the refereeing. Then we did things like eating habits, you know, what he's taking in, when he's taking in, how much he's taking in. Wanted to check on his mental health, make sure that that's good too, having good positive relationships. Knowing that variances in the weather can often affect our moods. You get a long gloomy spell and you're, you know, your junk. Make sure he gets a yearly physical. If he's got any prescribed medications, make sure they're taken on time as part of the good habits, and exercising, getting sleep. So all these things contributed into maintaining Bill's health, and I think that's where we got the next slide.
This is me. So I took a look at Bill's pulse. I tried to section off the last 6 years just because it's the most relevant data. Just try to see if there's any trends, where the trends would be. There's a lot of variance. You know, there's not really nothing that really pops out as a trend. You know, around football season, there is kind of a bit of a, you know, a little jump. You know, maybe Bill's sports betting. I don't know. But you can see at the end of 2019 and into 2020 though, Bill's pulse really stabilizes and it kind of holds in that range. It's probably attributed to COVID, maybe some lifestyle changes or something. But this is just year to year. You can go to the next slide. So then I put the 6 years into a control chart just to look at them across the map together. And you can see it even in this chart too, you can see, you know, the 2019 to 2020 year where it really kind of stabilizes. But outside of that, it's in control. I mean, you have that one jump up, probably a really exciting day. But for the most part, he's in control. You know, he's not crazy down, crazy up. It's a lot of up and down, but it's nothing out of control. You know, he's pretty, you know, he's got it together pulse wise. You can go to the next slide. And so these are Z distribution charts based on the years. And these charts also support, you know, you see that Z distribution chart is much tighter for 2020. The rest of them are kind of, you know, a bit similar of just, you know, variance. Nice bell shapes though. And that's about it for
Hey,
these.
Drew, that's just pulse.
Yeah, this is just pulse.
Gotcha.
And then, so we did a correlation chart of weight to pulse, just to see if there's any, you know, are they related at all? You know, there is a positive trend line. So, you know, it's not eye popping, but it's a positive trend line. Maybe a little bit of a correlation there between his weight and his pulse. And I think the next slide is Dan.
All right, so then we tried to as well take weight and blood pressure to see if there was much of a correlation. The weight versus the lower blood pressure seemed to have a small positive correlation where as it increased, lower blood pressure increased. And then over on the upper blood pressure, it seemed to correlate much higher than lower, signifying to us that maybe weight and upper blood pressure is more significant, or weight may be more significant in the upper blood pressure limit. We tried pulse and blood pressure as well, where we kind of saw the same thing. The pulse and lower blood pressure seem to be almost flat and barely positively correlated, where the upper blood pressure seemed to slope higher and be more significantly correlated.
I'm surprised it's 0.2, guys, you know, at a correlation. So
Eric, was this you or me? Forget.
Wasn't me.
Okay, that was me then. We for the Z distributions to okay, so this was me. This was the we did a Z distribution for the entire set as a whole. And you can see that the upper blood pressure was basically a perfect bell curve, very balanced, as well as the lower blood pressure. The pulse seems to be kind of skewed to the right, signifying to us that maybe more of the data was a bit above the average, as well as the weight had a little bit of a right skew there. So then we took, we did control charts for the entire data set as well, to see if there was any big jumps anywhere that maybe showed outliers. We could see in very early on, it seemed to kind of go out a bit, and then kind of stay fairly steady for the most part. Hit the low a couple times here. Like Drew said earlier, maybe could have been a big game on that day, or coaching a heated game, or maybe a very intense lean course. But otherwise,
Maybe
it
a
seemed,
fight with my wife,
yeah.
maybe.
But otherwise, blood pressure seems to be in control. The upper as well. It seems to kind of almost swing a bit in the beginning, from high to low control limits, and then slowly starts to stabilize and be closer to the mean.
Hey, Dan,
Yes.
you know that outlier, above the upper control limit there, that's when I passed out in the shower. That's
Right
when I
here?
said, I better do something.
Oh, geez. Well, you definitely got in control after that.
Yeah.
Next, we have the pulse control chart, which after the news that we just got from Bill there, I would assume that this was the area that you fell in the shower,
Absolutely.
which I would say definitely heavily correlates to pulse being high and out of the control limit there. But just like the pulse, you can see it here after he really made a lifestyle change, and it holds steady and in control for the rest of the time up until the present. Same for weight. In the beginning, it seems to be on the high end, go out of control for a bit, come down, do a few swings where it then went low and has kind of stabilized, and from 2019 tapered off, signifying that Bill's been definitely watching it and being healthy. We also look for seasonality. We took the data from each season specifically and lumped them together and did the Z distributions, where we kind of have the same scene here for each season, that a lot of the data is a bit skewed to the right, signifying that it's got a little above average there, or above the mean, I mean. As for the correlations, say Bill's pulse and blood pressure seems to spike during the beginning months of the year, as well as the summer months. Blood pressure went out of control slightly early on and then became more managed later. Bill's average weight is slightly higher in the autumn, believed to be from extra muscle gain refereeing football and the food intake to support it.
The beer intake.
And beer. Raised blood pressure in Bill's data may be correlated to teaching Lean Six Sigma classes. Eric, I think these are yours.
Yeah. So I actually broke out this by seasons, and I marked the seasons at the equinoxes and the solstices, so that we'd have real seasons going on here. And what I did find was that the average weight in the autumn actually was a little bit higher than during the rest of the year. It correlated also with the minimum and maximum. And then in the summer it was down. But all in all, the weights in the means pretty much the same and anywhere between 184 and 185 pounds. So he's maintaining that as it stands now. What did we have on the next slide? Yeah, I did the blood pressure too, and lo and behold, that showed some significance in the summer, where his blood pressure in the upper side was down. I brought the mean down as well. But it seems to be pretty steady as far as every other season is concerned. Your means are all, right there about 128 or so, and the uppers are about 150, 151. So I'd say it's in control. We got another slide here? Or is that it?
That's basically to cap it off, some health recommendations. Could always find some time to rest and find key causes of stress during seasons when blood pressure and pulse are at their highest. Continue on current track as the results have been predominantly positive in the later years. And watch food intake during autumn. Eat more fruit, less carbs to keep the muscles in tone without gaining weight. Oops.
Played.
Well done. I never told you ahead of time that I do a lot of eating and maybe a little bit more beer after football games, after meetings, while traveling. And you guys pulled it out of that data, made the data talk. That's
Nice.
fun. Well done. Well done.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Bill.
All right, Dan.
Ray or Frank, you want to speak up on these two guys? I got Ray Sestino too. Ray, you still there?
I'm still here. I just don't
Susan's
know what I
there.
did wrong.
I think Kim's
think-
up next, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead here.
Frank, what'd you think? They did pretty good, didn't they?
Oh, absolutely, Bill. A lot of good detail. Of course, this process is, it's not always perfect because you're working with stuff that's not, at your fingertips always when these group projects, but I think all the teams so far have really done a nice job of summarizing it, and giving you some solid advice on your, how you can be a better, healthy person.
Absolutely. Did you do my health data too, Frank? When you did yours?
No, we
No.
did something different, but
Okay.
I know
Thank
we
you.
worked on it through some of the exercises throughout the course.
Frank's an alumni, one of ours. Now it's like it's the mafia, like, you say the friend of ours versus a friend of mine. So Frank's a friend of ours, guys. All right, Kim, you ready? I think I gotta make sure you are.
Yeah, let me see if I could share real quick. Host disabled.
Kim. Now you're the co-host.
Yeah,
There
it says, okay, there we go. Maybe now I can share it. There we go. All right. All right. Can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Awesome. So we did our Lean Six Sigma final project. This is me, Kimberly Rawson, Coda Ware, and Ryan Dennis. Ryan's with Ulbrich Steel, and we are with PTA Plastics, Coda and I. Oh, next slide. There we go. Okay, so what we decided to do was we pulled data for scrap at PTA. PTA is the area that we're trying to focus on. Specifically, I wanted to do our Zoll customer. Reason being is Zoll's a customer of ours who historically has produced like 100,000 AEDs annually. And a couple months ago with the Damar Hanlon incident of him having cardiac arrest on the football field, they are now projected, our customer Zoll is now projected to increase their production by 4 times. So instead of doing 100K AEDs annually, they're doing 100K AEDs quarterly, which is great news for PTA Plastics, but gives us a great area of opportunity to make sure if we have, high scrap rates, especially knowing we're going to be ramping up production, to nip it in the bud before it becomes a real big problem. So what we did here was we pulled for our Zoll lower housing, we pulled all the scrap over the year of 2023, and it gave us different categories. Basically, we have operator error, bubbles, color, contamination, scrap, grease, flash, startup, drop, splay, streaks, and retains. We work in the plastic industry, so those are all common plastic scraps that you can have when you're manufacturing. So what I did was we did a Pareto chart to figure out which one of these defects do we want to tackle first and focus our sights on. When we ran through the data, we determined that splay was the highest cause of scrap out of the 2023 year for this particular part. When we were looking through it, that was basically the area we wanted to focus on. And the 80-20 rule does apply because just, I think it was 78%, about 79% of all of our defects were splay. So the 80-20 rule fits right in line with that. And let's see what I was able to determine for recommendations off of this Pareto chart was possibly splay is usually due to moisture or something in the process or in the material. So we would want to troubleshoot our process or resources used and do a root cause as to why splay would occur so much when we run this job. Review moisture analysis techniques to determine if changes are needed to potentially eliminate splay, and then check training records for staff and perform verification that training is done to satisfactory levels for all associated processes. And then this one was for Coda.
Yeah, so I made a sort of like a process chart of what we were doing here. I don't know why I said swim lane. But we basically have our suppliers is basically Zoll telling us, hey, make the AEDs. So we get operators to run the machine that we run this on, our 2052 machine. We need our mold, we need a material dryer. So we start molding our part, then we check for defects, and so with splays, our usually course of action is checking the moisture levels and going back to the material dryer, basically changing like, okay, why are you not drying the material enough, or are you drying the material too much? Contamination, we usually will check, like, is the material being stored properly? Is stuff getting into the material? Stuff getting into the machine that's not supposed to be in the machine? The parts are getting scratched. Okay, what's happening when we remove the parts? And then streaks, we check the pressures of the machine, make sure that everything is supposed to be right. It's basically the entire thing is just making sure everything's right. So those are outputs is like, oh,
Hey, Coda,
yes,
you know, the way you guys laid it out here, you could almost do fishbone right from here, you know,
Yeah.
in terms of, you know what I mean, to get the root cause, just using exactly what you guys just did. That's neat.
and then at the end, we just sent the non-defective parts to back to Zoll, who wanted them at the beginning.
All right. And then this was Ryan.
Yeah, I did the control chart on the splay scrap, just since that was the highest amount of scrap output. We could see there towards the end that those large spikes coming up towards the upper control limit. And just like the first group, our lower control limit is 0 since we can't have a negative scrap output. But yeah, just from the data we got, I think a root cause analysis to maybe try and catch these splays a little earlier in the process. They said moisture could be a cause part of it. So maybe in the wetter years, that's kind of our wetter times of the year. If moisture in the air might be causing that, if maybe a temperature controlled atmosphere might be something that would be a good idea, or getting something in a control plan to try and find these splays a little sooner in the process.
Awesome. And then, yeah, so then we pulled specifically for scrap, and with all our charts thus far, and then supporting what Ryan said even further. While most of our jobs and at PTA, a majority of our plans, we just plan scrap as 2%. So while everything looks out of control, just like the previous group said, usually it's still pretty in control. So while most of our jobs were under the plan 2% scrap rate, 5%, or sorry, 5 jobs did run over that 2% scrap. And with the ones that ran over, highlighted in yellow, kind of against the yellow background, that was my bad. And then out of the ones that I have highlighted yellow, they were usually around 3 to 4% scrap rate, so just slightly over, but 2 of them really did stand out, which is highlighted in the red there. That has the highest scrap rate at right around 9% and then 6%. And if we just go back to our chart here, right around October 20th is right where we spiked up, supported right here, October 20th on our second shift is right where we had that mega 9% display. And then Z distribution. Did you want to talk about this coda or?
Yeah, so
Okay.
basically like following what the previous group says is like, you can't have negative scrapped parts, which is going to be on the axis. It's like x-axis is like how many parts are scrapped. And we can even see like the huge 700 some parts that were scrapped as the very outlying dot. And then we also do have like a really nice looking bell curve. But yeah.
Yeah, you could see here a majority of our defects would be under 100 quantities. So that's why it's very group tight at the top of that curve. And then it is a very small, far in between instance where we have over 700 scrap on a job. So that is what I'm going to say is a very one-off situation. We'll have to maybe see if that person's still working here.
Kim, that, I mean, it go to both. That's a special cause of variation, like getting on top. That's a great opportunity for A3, but the problem is you got to do it like right when it happens, right? In order to get all the clues together. But this process seems like it's in control, just like Sebastian's.
Yeah, and that's, well, that was the end of it. Wherever did it go? Just to like say all the way at the beginning, our annual completed scrap rate annual completed jobs for this just under 700,000, and the annual scrap total of all of those combined is under 5,000. So we're still well within the 2%. It's just looking at those processes and being like, wow. So that was really influential for me, I guess, doing this project was, okay, while we're still in control, where can we control even more the, I guess, in control, out of control processes?
Well, everybody, a nice round of applause for our the world's newest green belt. We're gonna put you out on the street, through your influence. Guys, thank you so much. Well done. If you guys don't mind sending me those presentations, I already have Sebastian's. I'll be visiting you in the near future to present you with your mugs. And again, I want a special for Drew and Ryan, first, second shift. And I've done it, I don't know how many times, probably 20, 25 of these sessions. And this will be the first time that two people on second shift working together made it all the way through. So I'm really excited about that. And it was just great seeing you guys every week. I mean, I even got to hear Coda and Sebastian, who were probably the two quietest people in my class. I don't think I ever heard Coda talk until today, since I visited you guys out in Colorado. Well, thank you guys. Thank you for our guests, Frank and Susan, for supporting these guys.
Excellent job. Excellent job, Bill. They were phenomenal presentations.
Hey, thanks for hanging in there.
Thank you. Excellent job, group.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congrats, guys.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
Have
All
a
right,
great
thanks,
night.
Bill.
Thanks very much, Bill. Appreciate the hard work
welcome.
you did for us.
You're absolutely welcome.
Thank you. And we're not going to see anybody anymore, right? This is our last class.
This is it. Just gonna get a certificate suitable for framing, and then I gotta get the mugs to you somehow.
Well,
You want
geez.
an address?
Yeah, I think you better send me your, nah, you're in Connecticut, aren't you? Eric?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll find you somewhere. I'll get you.
okay.
I'll find you. It's fun.
See you guys.
Bye, Bill.
All right, thanks, Bill.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Cam.